connection.
BeBe and CeCe
And
Winans
yes,
are the most
even
famous
songs about regret.
brother-sister pair in
There's
gospel
even
music.
talk of a Netflix docuseries
Imagine them coming
being
back on
pitched
stage
alongside the
together
album,
after years of
chronicling
rumors
the
of a
making of the
falling
project.
out.
No public
Now,
sit-down has
Marvin
occurred
Winans
between the
finally
siblings,
breaks his
at
quiet.
least not yet.
He tells
Still,
why they broke
one
up
thing is certain:
and how a painful
the
secret
silence has
almost
been
caused the
broken.
Winans family to
The
split
first
up.
seeds of
I
reconciliation
promise you
have
that
been
you will
planted.
want to hear
And
every
whether through
shocking
song,
detail.
sermon,
The
or
Winans
his
are a
moment
name that
isn't
comes to
just
mind when
about
you think
music.
of gospel
It's about
royalty.
healing.
From their
We know
beautiful
people have been
duets to their
talking.
deeply moving
And yes,
lyrics.
we've been
Be,
distant.
but,
Sometimes
we,
and what happened
moving
next
lyrics,
left him
BeBe. And
devastated.
CeCe the Winans
For
are more
years,
than just
Marvin Winans stayed
entertainers.
silent.
They're legends.
While
But there
fans
has been a deeper
speculated
story going on
while
behind
the
the
duo
golden
had
mics
always
and bright
maintained a
church
unified
lights.
front,
One
the
that is
pressures of the
quiet,
music
separate,
industry began
and right
shifting their
now.
paths.
An amazing
CeCe
meeting that is
Winans,
making people
especially,
in the
became a
gospel
breakout
world talk.
Bo?
What really went down between Marvin Winans, BeBe, and CeCe? Why did this singing family that used to be so close become so far apart that Marvin now says he was left behind? And why is BeBe making this surprising comeback? And CeCe in 2025? Deep into the truths behind the scenes that the public never heard in this movie. You won't believe the chain of events that led to this emotional breaking point. It included small family fights, pressures from the workplace, and even spiritual differences. And what did Marvin finally say? It changes everything you thought you knew about the first family of gospel. Now, wait until the end of the movie. We'll find out not only what made BeBe and CeCe's return, but also Marvin's mental problems that he has had for years. 4 years. Now trust me, this is where things get interesting. There was glory before the split and the silence. They didn't just get into religious music. The Winans changed it. At the center of that change were 3 voices that stood out: BeBe, CeCe, and Marvin Winans. So in the 1980s, when traditional sounds were still important in church music, BeBe and CeCe broke the rules. Heaven, their first record, came out in 1988 and was a spiritual bombshell. It mixed R&B, soul, and gospel in a way that no one had ever heard before. They were on Christian radio, the Billboard charts, and even mainstream venues right away. The beautiful soprano of CeCe and the smooth, soulful tone of BeBe cut a new path. They were more than just a pair. They were a movement. At the same time, the bigger brother Marvin Winans had already solidified his position as a gospel royalty. As a part of the Winans, he won many Grammys and Dove Awards and was praised by gospel purists for keeping the music and message pure. Fun stuff. Marvin was known as the more classic one, the voice of the preacher and the spiritual center. Marvin, BeBe, and CeCe were the 3 most important musicians in a family line that was not only famous, but also had spiritual weight. People in the church looked to them for ideas, prayer, and hope. But fame doesn't come without stress, and when a family does well, it can often lead to fights. And that's exactly what began to happen.
Connection.
But now comes
And
the
yes,
part that no one
even
saw
songs
coming.
about regret.
The
There's
slow
even
fade
talk of a
wasn't just
Netflix
good taste.
docuseries
People
being
who were
pitched
there
alongside
say
the
it got
album,
very personal.
chronicling the making of the project.
He
No
and
public
Marvin
sit-down
knew it
has
was going to
occurred
happen,
between the
and
siblings,
most felt it.
at least not yet.
As the 1990s
Still,
began,
one thing is
BeBe and
certain:
CeCe were
the
drawn to the
silence
brightness
has
of
been
solo
broken.
fame and
The
started to
first
work on
seeds
their
of
own projects.
reconciliation have been
The
planted.
2 had always
And
put
whether
on a
through
united
song,
front, but the
sermon,
demands
or
of the
his moment
music
isn't
business
just about music.
started to change
It's
their
about healing.
plans.
We know people have been
Love,
talking.
brands,
And yes,
especially
we've
CeCe
been
Winans
distant.
became a big
Sometimes
name as a
silent.
single
And what
artist.
happened next
With her stunning
left him
first record as a
devastated.
solo
For
artist,
years,
alone in his
Marvin
presence,
Winans stayed
she won
silent.
many awards
While
and became a
fans
gospel
speculated
music
and the
icon for
while
women's
the duo had
empowerment.
always maintained
At
a
the same
unified
time,
front,
BeBe
the
was
pressures
going
of the
after a
music industry
different
began
group
shifting
of
their
people.
paths.
And
CeCe
I bet he was
Winans,
known for combining
especially,
his
became a
gospel
breakout
background with modern R&B sounds. His solo albums were more mainstream, and he even worked with acts from outside of the gospel genre. That was a brave move, but Marvin Winans and other people didn't like it. Gospel historians and people who work in the industry say that Marvin started to share concerns behind the scenes. At first, he didn't say anything in public, but family members saw that tensions were rising. Marvin was a strong supporter of traditional gospel and thought the sacred word should stay the same. It was said that he was afraid that BeBe, even though CeCe was a great artist, she was moving too far away from the spiritual beliefs she was raised in. This is where it hurts. Marvin saw it as more than just an artistic break. He thought of it as a spiritual break. In a now famous lecture at Detroit's Perfecting Church, Marvin talked about people who use the gospel to get praise, but not to worship. Even though he didn't say any names, The timing of his comments made people wonder if he was indirectly talking about his own brothers. What's even more telling, even though BeBe and CeCe had been at every big event Marvin had held before, they didn't go to the church anniversary that year. The whispers got louder. People were wondering what was going on with the Winans. There was a lot of guesswork on gospel sites. Was there a fight? Had they grown up with each other? Did it have something more to it than money or fame? But this is where things get really sad. It was said that Marvin tried to make up with her secretly, but what happened next broke his heart. Marvin Winans didn't say anything for years. Fans and people in the gospel world talked about the growing split, but Marvin wouldn't say anything. He taught. He sang. He was in charge of his church. However, behind the pulpit and the polished performances, there was a man who was quietly nursing scars from being away from the business and his own blood. That silence was finally broken in 2025 when Marvin made an emotional interview on the Faith and Family podcast. So, he said that he had to tell the truth, not to hurt, but to heal. What he said shocked people in the church world. Marvin said, BeBe and CeCe, they've always had the gift in a somber voice. But somewhere along the way, the claps shut out the call.
And yes,
I tried to get in
even
touch.
songs about regret.
I tried to be there.
There's even
They
talk
left
of a
me a long
Netflix
time ago,
docuseries
though.
being pitched alongside
Not
the
just
album,
physically, but also
chronicling the
mentally.
making of the project.
He
No
didn't
public
sound
sit-down
angry.
has occurred
He
between the
spoke with
siblings.
pain.
At
He
least
didn't
not
tell
yet.
them to leave.
Still,
He told
one
them
thing
to
is
go
certain.
home.
The silence has been
Marvin
broken.
said that there were a lot
The
of
first
missed
seeds
calls,
of reconciliation
invitations, and
have
talks
been
that were
planted.
not had.
And whether
It took
through
him
song,
years of trying to get
sermon,
the family
or his
together,
moment isn't
not just for
about
music,
music.
but also for service.
It's about healing.
One of the most
We know
moving
people have been
parts was when he
talking.
talked about
And
planning
yes,
a Christmas
we've been
get-together for
distant.
the whole Winans
Sometimes
family.
style.
Everyone came,
And what happened
except
next
BeBe
left
and
him
CeCe.
devastated.
Silence.
For years,
No answer.
Marvin Winans
No
stayed
text
silent.
message in return.
While fans
No
speculated
text
and
message in return.
while the
Marvin
duo
told
had
me that
always
he and his
maintained a
grandchildren
unified
watched
front,
old movies
the
of them
pressures
that
of the
night.
music industry
It
began
made me
shifting their
smile because I'm
paths.
proud of them.
CeCe Winans,
But deep
especially,
down,
became
I
a
was
breakout
sad because those sounds aren't just voices to the world. I miss my family. He went on to say that being successful in church music has both good and bad sides. It gives you power, a stage, and attention. But if you're not careful, it can take real relationship, spiritual support, and even family. Marvin did say something, but it wasn't just about his sadness. Of course, it was also about forgiving. He told them, I don't hold anything against them. It was not okay for me to act like everything was fine, because stillness can be louder than yelling. This conversation broke down a wall that had been there for a long time. Gospel blogs got very busy. Fans wrote a lot of prayers, messages of support, and even angry comments. Some stood up for BeBe and CeCe. Some people agreed with Marvin. It wasn't just the Winans family that was divided. It was now happening in public. But now the surprise, everyone didn't see coming. A few days after Marvin's podcast aired, BeBe and CeCe showed up at a gospel event in Atlanta without being invited. What did they do next? Let's just say that it left everyone in the venue and everyone watching online in stunned silence. On July 6, 2025, the Atlanta Praise Festival, a sold-out gospel concert with some of the biggest stars in the business, was just like any other night. But no one, not even the people who put on the show, knew what would happen. In the last hour of the show, as the MC was getting ready to present the last act, the house lights went out and a single spotlight shone on the stage. Then, the clear sound of CeCe, the room was full of Winans' words. Even when it's hard to smile, count your blessings. There was silence in the crowd as phones rang off an alarm. People screamed and tears started to fall. But when BeBe Winans came on stage right behind her, and his voice fit in perfectly, like no time had passed. The crowd gave a standing ovation for more than just the music. They did it because of what it stood for. It had been more than 7 years since BeBe and CeCe, they played together. What's more, it was the first public sign that they might have heard Marvin's pain. It didn't end there, though. In the middle of the show, when the instruments and choir quieted down, BeBe didn't expect what they did
And
when they
yes,
took the mic.
even songs about
He
regret.
said, before
There's
we end,
even talk
we
of a
want to say
Netflix
that this isn't
docuseries being
just
pitched
about
alongside
music.
the album,
The point is
chronicling
to
the
heal.
making of the
We know
project.
that
No
people
public
have
sit-down
talked.
has occurred between
We
the
have been
siblings.
far apart,
At least not
yes.
yet. Still,
There are times
one
when
thing
life
is
takes you
certain.
away before you
The
know
silence
it.
has
But
been
tonight,
broken.
we're coming back,
The first
not
seeds of
just to the stage,
reconciliation
but
have
to our
been
family.
planted. And whether
then,
through
in a move
song,
that stunned the
sermon,
gospel
or
world,
his moment
CeCe
isn't
added,
just
we
about
love you,
music.
Marvin.
It's
We
about
always
healing.
have. And
We know
hear
people
you.
have been
A
talking.
gasp rolled
And
through
yes,
the audience.
we've been
Rolled
distant.
through the audience.
Sometimes
They didn't name him
and
for
what
applause.
happened next
They
left
spoke
him
his name to make
devastated.
peace.
For years,
But
Marvin
Marvin
Winans
wasn't
stayed
in the
silent.
crowd. In
While
fact,
fans
he
speculated
hadn't even
and
been invited to the
while
event.
the duo had always
According to a
maintained a
source
unified
close to the
front,
Winans
the
circle,
pressures of the music
Marvin
industry
watched the
began
entire
shifting their
performance
paths.
via live stream from his
CeCe
Detroit
Winans,
home,
especially,
tears running
became a
down his
breakout
face. He later posted on Instagram, "Sometimes reconciliation begins with a song. I'm listening." No hashtags, no commentary, just a raw emotional post that confirmed the moment had reached him. Still, not everyone was convinced. Critics on social media argued that the reunion felt more like a PR move than a genuine act of restoration. Others pointed out that BeBe and CeCe still hadn't publicly addressed Marvin's podcast confession directly. Was this reunion a true return to family, or just a moment created for the cameras and gospel headlines? But wait, there's more. What happened backstage after the performance revealed even deeper layers of the story. Layers that involve a private phone call, a long letter, and a powerful invitation Marvin has yet to answer. The Atlanta Praise Festival had ended. The crowd had filed out. The lights had dimmed, singed. But behind the velvet curtains and roped-off security zones, a much more intimate and emotional scene was unfolding, one that no fan or camera captured. Backstage, after their stunning performance and heartfelt dedication to Marvin, CeCe sat alone in the dressing room, pen in hand, Bible beside her. A witness who chose to remain anonymous but spoke to gospel truth, weakly said CeCe was visibly shaken and in deep reflection. That night, she wrote Marvin a handwritten letter. The contents of that letter have not been made public, but sources close to the family claim it was a raw, vulnerable acknowledgement of what had been lost and a plea to rebuild the relationship that fame, schedules, and spiritual misunderstandings had fractured. Oh. She poured her heart into it, the source said. It wasn't for show, it wasn't for the press. It was for Marvin. She said things in that letter that she hadn't said in decades. BeBe too reportedly tried to reach out. After the show, he made a direct phone call to Marvin. The call went to voicemail, but instead of leaving a message, BeBe followed up with a simple personal text. "We're ready when you are. Let's talk. We miss you." Marvin didn't respond immediately. According to insiders, he needed space. Time to process not just the public gesture, but the private pain that had lingered for so long. The next day, the letter was sent via courier to Marvin's
And yes,
Detroit home.
even songs
3 days
about
later,
regret.
Marvin was seen
There's
walking
even
into
talk of a
Perfecting
Netflix
Church,
docuseries
carrying that
being
very
pitched
letter,
alongside the
folded,
album,
worn, and
chronicling the
tucked into
making
his
of the
Bible.
No public
He didn't
sit-down
say
has
a word
occurred
about
between
it
the
during his
siblings,
Sunday sermon,
at least
but
not
his
yet.
energy was
Still,
noticeably
one
different.
thing is certain,
So is
the silence has
One
been
congregant
broken.
described his
The first
demeanor as
seeds of
lighter, like a
reconciliation
burden
have
had
been
been
planted.
lifted.
And
Yet,
whether through
the story
song,
doesn't end
sermon,
there.
or his moment
In a
isn't
follow-up
just about
interview with a
music,
local
it's
gospel
about
radio
healing.
station,
We know
Marvin
people have
shared
been
that he had
talking.
received words
And
of
yes,
peace from his
we've been
siblings,
distant.
but made it clear.
Sometimes
He also
and
hinted
what
at
happened
something
next
big
left
coming
him
in the fall of
devastated.
2025.
For years,
A
Marvin
potential
Winans stayed
family
silent.
worship night,
While fans
featuring not
speculated
just
and
BeBe
the
and
duo had
CeCe,
always maintained a unified
Foe,
front,
but the
the
entire
pressures of the
Winans
music
family,
industry
including
began
his own
shifting their
children and
paths.
CeCe's daughter,
CeCe
Ashley.
Winans,
But fans remain
especially,
divided.
became a
Some
breakout
are hopeful, flooding social media with prayers and praise hands emojis, calling the reunion a divine miracle. Others are skeptical, pointing to the years of silence, unresolved tension, and the fact that no public sit-down has occurred between the siblings, at least not yet. Still, one thing is certain: the silence has been broken. The first seeds of reconciliation have been planted. And whether through song, sermon, or handwritten words, the Winans siblings have begun to take steps back toward each other. And if this worship night actually happens, it may not just be a reunion. But just when you think the story has reached its final note, there's one more twist. As whispers of healing echo through gospel circles, a new rumor has started making waves across industry boardrooms, fan pages, and gospel blogs alike. A reunion album, not just a single performance, not just a symbolic moment on stage, but a full-length, deeply personal collaborative project from BeBe CeCe and Marvin Winans. And if the reports are true, this may be more than an album. Soon, it could be the final bow for gospel's most influential family. Multiple industry sources, including someone close to CeCe's management team, have confirmed that talks are underway. Reportedly titled The Return, the project would mark the first time the three Winans siblings have recorded together in nearly 2 decades. The concept, an album that tells their story, the rise, the fallout, the silence, and the reconciliation. So, one producer, speaking anonymously, said, "This isn't just music, it's ministry, it's confession, and BeBe's soulful R&B gospel fusion. But most importantly, the lyrics will reflect their journey. Songs about forgiveness, about family, about spiritual disconnection, and yes, even songs about regret." There's even talk of a Netflix docuseries being pitched alongside the album, chronicling the making of the project, the family's emotional reunions, and the conversations that had been buried for far too long. The proposed title, Winans, after the silence. But even with the potential for music and cameras, Marvin has made one thing very clear in a recent sermon. "I'm not coming back to the stage for applause. I'm coming back for alignment. If we do this, it won't be for charts.
Connection. And
It'll
yes,
be for
even
Christ."
songs about regret.
And that right
There's
there is the
even talk
heartbeat
of a
of this
Netflix
entire story.
docuseries being pitched
Because
alongside
behind the
the album,
awards, the
chronicling
Grammys,
the
the
making
public
of the project.
smiles,
No
and the
public
social media
sit-down has
posts are
occurred
three
between the
siblings who were
siblings,
raised
at least not
not
yet.
just to entertain,
Still,
but to
one thing
worship.
is certain.
Two,
The silence
who
has
stood
been
side by
broken.
side on Sunday
The first
mornings
seeds
as
of
children,
reconciliation
who shared
have been
microphones,
planted.
pulpits,
And whether
praise,
through
and
song,
who,
sermon,
somewhere
or
along the
his moment
way,
isn't
let
just
silence
about
do the
music.
speaking.
It's about healing.
But
We
now
know
the
people
silence
have
is
been
breaking.
talking.
The calls
And
are
yes,
being answered.
we've
The
been
letters are
distant.
being read.
Sometimes
And
though.
maybe, just
And
maybe,
what happened
the
next
Winans
left
legacy
him
is writing its most
devastated.
important
For
chapter
years,
yet.
Marvin
One not
Winans
written
stayed
in gold
silent.
records, but
While
in grace.
fans speculated
So,
and
what can we learn
while the
from
duo
this?
had always maintained a
From
unified
this,
front,
we often
the
see
pressures of the
celebrities,
music
especially in the
industry began
gospel
shifting their
world,
paths.
as unshakable
CeCe
above the fray,
Winans,
spiritually
especially,
perfect.
became a
But the
breakout
truth is, they're just human, with wounds, with pride, with purpose, and with the same desperate need for healing that all of us carry. Whether or not the reunion album or Netflix doc happens, one thing is certain: the work of reconciliation has begun. Not for the cameras, not for the cameras, not for the critics, but for the family, for the calling, for the faith. And maybe that's the gospel message in all of this. So, what do you think? Was this reunion a true moment of healing or just a carefully timed move after Marvin's emotional confession? Do you believe BeBe and CeCe are truly ready to reconnect with Marvin and restore what's been lost over the years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're watching every one of them. If you were moved by the story of family, faith, and forgiveness, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel for more truth-telling deep dives like this. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even the deepest wounds can still heal. And if that new album drops, you'll hear about it here first. Until then, stay bold, stay blessed, and stay tuned.